The night was cold and silent, broken only by the whisper of the wind moving through the alien scrapyard, mountains of twisted metal, shattered ships, and broken machines stretched as far as the eye could see. It was not just a graveyard of technology. It was a graveyard of lives, of things that no longer mattered to anyone. Hidden deep within the piles of rusting wreckage lay a small figure, weak and motionless. Her skin was pale with alien markings, and her body trembled whenever the cold wind touched her. She was a young alien girl, once proud, once part of a family who had promised to protect her. But now, her family was gone. They had left her here, in this place where no one ever came back. They called her broken, paralyzed, and useless. So they abandoned her as if she was nothing. Her name was Lyra, and her eyes were half closed as she stared at the stars through a gap in the wreckage above her. She could not move her legs. She could barely even lift her arms. Every breath felt like a fight. Every moment felt like the last. But even as her body weakened, her mind whispered a desperate truth: she wanted to live. The scrapyard was dangerous, not only because of the sharp metal and falling machines, but also because of the creatures that lived among the ruins. Hungry scavenger beasts crawled in the shadows, feeding on anything they could find. Lyra heard their distant cries sometimes, and fear would grip her heart tighter than the cold. She knew that if the beasts found her before someone else did, her suffering would end in a way she could not control. The memory of her family burned inside her chest. She remembered their voices, the arguments, the words that cut deeper than knives. "You are no longer useful," her uncle had said. "A burden has no place in this house." Her mother had turned away, tears in her eyes, but no courage in her heart, and her brother, the one who once played with her, did not even say goodbye. They loaded her into a cart and threw her into the scrapyard, as if she was another piece of junk. Her lips trembled as she whispered to herself, "Why? Why did they do this to me?" Her voice was so weak, the wind nearly carried it away. Her chest ached, not only from hunger and pain, but from the crushing weight of being unwanted. She wondered if anyone in the universe would even care if she was gone. The stars above seemed far away, uncaring and cold. Yet Lyra kept staring at them, wishing, hoping that something, anything, would change. Her breath grew shallow. Her fingers twitched as she tried to drag herself closer to a pile of scrap for shelter, but her strength was gone. And her body collapsed against the ground. Tears slid down her cheeks, mixing with the dirt beneath her. I don't want to die here," she whispered. Her voice was faint, almost broken, but the scrapyard was so silent that even a whisper seemed loud. It echoed between the broken walls of dead ships, as if the universe itself heard her plea. The night stretched on, cruel and endless. Each minute was heavier than the last. Her eyelids grew heavy, her breathing slower, in the silence of the scrapyard. It felt like the world had already forgotten her, but deep within her heart, a small flame refused to go out. She remembered the warmth of laughter from long ago, the touch of her mother before everything changed. She remembered dreams she once had to explore the stars, to prove her worth, to live. That flame whispered inside her, "Survive. Just one more night. Survive." The darkness pressed closer. The cold gnawed at her bones. And the scrapyard seemed ready to claim her life. But fate was not finished with Lyra yet. In the distance, faint footsteps crunched over metal, slow and heavy. A shadow moved between the wreckage, tall and broad, carrying a dim light that cut through the night. Lyra's fading eyes blinked at the glow, her heart weak but suddenly racing. Her lips parted, and with the last of her strength, she let out a soft, broken cry. "Help. Please." Her voice trembled, but it carried just far enough. The shadow froze, the footsteps stopped, and the dim light turned toward her for the first time since her family abandoned her. Someone had heard her. Her story was not over yet. The shadow moved closer, boots pressing against the broken metal of the scrapyard. The dim light came from a small lantern hanging on the side of a tall figure. He was not alien like the others who had abandoned her. He was human. His rough jacket was patched with scars of fire and oil, his hands calloused from work. He was a scavenger. A man who came to scrapyards to collect parts, sell them, and survive. His name was Daniel. And his eyes scanned the ruins with the caution of someone who had learned to trust nothing in the dark. But then he froze, the faintest whisper. So weak, he almost thought it was the wind. Brushed against his ears. Help. Please. Daniel raised the lantern higher, its glow falling on a fragile figure half buried under twisted metal. At first, he thought it was another broken doll or discarded machine. But then he saw her trembling, her shallow breath, and her tear-streaked face. She was alive. For a moment, he stood still, his chest heavy with hesitation. This was not the first time he had seen the forgotten. Abandoned by their own, the scrapyard often hid the unwanted, the weak, the broken, but most people turned away because helping meant danger, and danger meant death. Daniel knew this truth, yet something about her weak voice, about the way her eyes still clung to life, pulled him forward, kneeling down. He brushed away the rusted shards around her. Her alien skin shimmered faintly under the light. Though pale from weakness, her body was thin, and he quickly noticed the stiffness of her legs. Paralyzed, he thought. Abandoned because she could not walk. Her lips moved again, a soft whisper. Please, don't leave me. Daniel's heart tightened. He had lived long enough to know cruelty. But seeing her in this state reminded him of something deep inside memories of his own little sister who had once been sick. Fragile and afraid, he remembered holding her hand and promising her she was not alone and here in this cold scrapyard. Those memories returned with sharp force. I won't leave you, he said quietly, his voice firm. With careful strength, he lifted the alien girl into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost like carrying a shadow. Her head rested against his chest, and he could feel how weak her heartbeat was. She tried to speak again, but her voice cracked and broke into silence. Daniel looked around, half expecting to see others waiting to ambush him, but the scrapyard was empty. Only the rusting metal groaned against the cold wind. Still, he felt the weight of the risk. Bringing her with him meant trouble, maybe even enemies, but leaving her meant death. And he had already given her his word, step by step. Daniel carried her out of the broken maze of ships and machines. The lantern's glow swung with his movement, casting long shadows on the twisted racks. The girl stirred faintly in his arms, her voice so soft it was almost a dream. Why? Why save me? No one ever wanted me. Daniel paused, looking down at her fragile face. Her words stabbed deeper than the cold, because she truly believed it. He shook his head, his voice low but steady. Because you're alive, and that's enough. The wind whistled, as if answering him, and he walked on. The path out of the scrapyard was long, and the weight in his arms grew heavier. But he refused to let go with every step. He felt the responsibility anchored deeper into his soul. At the edge of the scrapyard, his small transport waited. An old hover cart patched together with spare parts. He laid her down gently on a worn blanket, covering her with his own jacket. Her eyes blinked open once more, glowing faintly in the lantern's light. Tears slid down her cheeks. But this time, they were mixed with disbelief. You didn't throw me away, she whispered. Daniel tightened the straps on the hover cart and looked at her. Not everyone throws things away, kid, he said, his tone soft but strong. Some things are worth saving. Her eyes slowly closed, her body surrendering to exhaustion. For the first time since her family left her, she felt safe enough to sleep. Daniel sat beside her as the transport hummed to life. But as the cart glided away from the scrapyard, he couldn't shake the unease crawling in his chest. He felt eyes on him, far back among the twisted metal. Hidden in the shadows, a pair of alien figures had been watching, their faces unreadable. Their whispers carried by the wind. She survived. One voice hissed, "That human has her now." The other nodded darkly. "We must tell the family. They will not allow this shame to live." Daniel did not know he had already made enemies. He only knew one thing: he had found a life others had thrown away, and he would not abandon it. But fate was already moving, and the path ahead would not be easy. Daniel's small transport hummed through the night as it carried him and the fragile alien girl away from the scrapyard. The wind brushed against his face, carrying the bitter scent of rust and oil. The girl lay wrapped in his jacket, her breathing shallow but steadier than before. Every now and then, her lips trembled as if she was still whispering words in her dreams. When they reached Daniel's workshop, he pushed open the heavy metal doors, the hinges groaning in protest. The place was small and filled with spare parts. Broken machines and tools scattered across tables. It was not a home built for comfort, but it was safe, and more than that, it was warm. Daniel placed the girl gently on a simple cot in the corner. Pulling another blanket over her frail body, she stirred, her eyes half opening. Glowing faintly in the dim light of the lanterns hung on the walls, her gaze darted around nervously, then settled on him. Fear flickered in her eyes as she whispered, "Where am I? Why did you bring me here?" Daniel crouched beside her, his voice steady and calm. "You're safe now. This is my place. No one's going to hurt you here." Her eyes shimmered with doubt, tears threatening to fall. "No one ever saved me before," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They all left me, my own family. They called me broken. They said I was useless." Her chest shook as she spoke, and Daniel could feel the weight of her pain. He shook his head, meeting her gaze with quiet strength. "You're alive, and that's enough. You're not broken." "Not to me." For a moment, the room was silent except for the soft hum of the heater. The girl's tears slid down her cheeks, but this time they were not only from sorrow. There was something else, something fragile, something new. It was hope. Daniel moved to the small stove in the corner, heating a bowl of broth. He returned with the steaming cup and gently held it near her lips. "Drink, it will help," he said. Her hands trembled as she tried to lift them, but her strength was too weak. Daniel carefully held the cup for her, letting her sip slowly. The warmth filled her mouth and throat, and for the first time in days, she tasted life again. Her eyes softened, though her voice was still unsure. "Why? Why are you doing this for me, human?" Daniel's jaw tightened, memories stirring from his past. He remembered a time when he was small, when his younger sister had been sick. Everyone told his family she would not survive, but Daniel had refused to give up on her. He had sat by her bed every night, promising her she was not alone. That promise had carried him for years, even after she was gone, and now, seeing this alien girl abandoned just as cruelly, he felt that old promise rise again, because someone has to. He said finally, his voice low but filled with conviction, "Because no one deserves to be thrown away." The alien girl looked at him for a long time, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. Finally, she whispered, "My name is Lyra." Daniel nodded, his lips curving into the faintest smile. "Lyra. Then you're safe here, Lyra." Her eyes fluttered closed, exhaustion pulling her back into sleep. Daniel sat beside the cot, watching her breathing. He felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders, but he did not turn away. Outside, the night stretched endlessly, and danger moved silently in the shadows. Far beyond the workshop in the alien city, whispers had begun to spread. Rumors that the paralyzed girl abandoned in the scrapyard had been found alive. The whispers reached the ears of her family, and shame burned in their hearts. How could she'll survive? Her uncle spat, slamming his fist on the table. She was supposed to die there. Her mother looked down, her face pale with fear. If she lives, people will know what we did. They'll know we left her, the brother sneered, his voice dripping with cold anger. And a human took her. Of all things, this cannot be allowed. Their pride twisted into fury, and their decision was made. They would not allow her to live and bring shame upon their name. They would find her, and this time, they would make sure no one could save her. Back in the workshop, Lyra stirred again, her eyes opening slowly. She looked around at the scattered tools, the glowing lanterns, and the man who sat near her with quiet patience, her lips curved faintly. A tiny, fragile smile forming. For the first time in years, she did not feel like trash. For the first time, she felt like maybe she mattered, but fate had already chosen its path. Though Lyra had found a fragile hope in the human's kindness. Danger was moving closer. In the dark, unseen eyes were watching, waiting for the chance to strike. And the storm was only beginning. The alien city was alive with noise. Neon lights glowing against tall towers and crowded streets. But inside one quiet house at the edge of the district, the atmosphere was heavy with rage and shame. Lyra's family gathered in the main chamber, their faces shadowed by dim lamps. They had thought the problem was gone, forgotten, buried in the scrapyard. But whispers had reached their ears, whispers they could not ignore. "She is alive," a neighbor had said with mocking eyes. "I heard a human found her. Can you imagine a human had to save what you threw?" Away, those words spread through the community like fire, burning the family's pride to ash. Her uncle slammed his fist against the table, his voice sharp and bitter. "She should have died. No one was supposed to know. Now the whole district talks about us." Lyra's mother sat silently, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and sorrow. She had been the one who turned away when her daughter begged for mercy. The memory haunted her, but she lacked the courage to speak. Her brother leaned back in his chair, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "A human has her. Do you understand what that means? The shame is doubled. Not only is she alive, but she is in the hands of those creatures we despise," the uncle growled, his pride louder than his reason. "This cannot be allowed. She will bring dishonor to our name. Everyone will see us as weak, as cowards who left our blood in the dirt. No, she must be silenced." The room fell into silence, the weight of his words pressing on them like iron. Even the mother, though her eyes trembled with tears, said nothing. Her silence was an answer of its own, far away, inside the small workshop. Daniel worked late into the night. The girl Lyra slept on the cot, her breathing soft and steady. The faint glow of lanterns lit the room, while the sound of tools clinking echoed against the walls. Daniel was fixing an old heating unit, but his mind kept drifting back to the fragile girl. He had seen many broken things in his life, but none like her. There was something in her eyes when she had spoken earlier, something raw and painful. The way she asked why he saved her, the way she whispered her own name like it was the last. Piece of her left, it stayed with him, cutting deeper than he expected. When he glanced back, he saw her eyes half open, watching him quietly. "You? Still here?" she whispered, her voice thin. Daniel nodded, setting the tool down. "Of course I'm here. Where else would I be?" Her lips quivered. Not from weakness this time, but from something she didn't know how to explain. No one had ever stayed before. No one had ever chosen her when it mattered. She looked at him for a long moment, then closed her eyes again, as if holding on to the comfort of his words. But outside the walls of the workshop, unseen danger grew. In the shadows, cloaked figures moved. Watching, her family had sent scouts. Determined to know where she was hidden, one of them crouched near a broken wall, whispering into a comm device. "She's here, with the human. The rumors are true." Back in the family's chamber, the report reached them. The uncle's eyes gleamed with cold fury. "Then it's decided. We'll take her back, but not to save her. This time, we'll end it with our own hands." The brother grinned cruelly, his words dripping with venom. "Let the human try to protect her. He'll learn what happens when outsiders interfere with our blood." The mother lowered her gaze, her hands trembling. In her heart, guilt screamed, but fear held her tongue. She had once loved her daughter. But her weakness had destroyed that love. Now she only sat in silence as her family prepared for blood. The night in Daniel's workshop was calm. But his instincts told him something was wrong. He stepped outside, scanning the empty street. The cold air biting against his skin. The city was distant, its lights flickering faintly beyond the horizon. Here, on the edge of civilization, it was too quiet. He felt eyes watching him. Though he saw nothing, inside, Lyra stirred again, her voice weak but urgent, human. "Daniel, do you hear it?" He turned sharply, moving back to her side. "Here." "What?" Her gaze darted toward the walls, her alien senses sharper than his, whispers. "They're near," she said, her breath quickening. Fear filled her eyes. Not the fear of the scrapyard, but the fear of something far more personal. She knew who it was. She knew who had come. Daniel's jaw tightened, his hand instinctively moving to the small weapon on his belt. Whoever was out there, he would not let them touch her. He had made a promise. And promises to him were heavier than steel. Far away, the family prepared to strike. Their pride demanded silence. Their shame demanded blood. The paralyzed girl had found a fragile hope in the arms of a human. But that fragile hope was now under threat, and the battle for her life was about to begin. The night wrapped Daniel's workshop in silence, broken only by the faint hum of old machines. Inside, Lyra lay on the cot, her breathing shallow but steady. Her fragile body finally finding a little warmth. Daniel sat at his workbench, fixing an old rifle, his eyes heavy but alert. Something in his chest refused to let him sleep. He kept remembering the way she had whispered earlier. Her voice trembling, "They're near." Those words haunted him. They echoed in his ears as if a warning from her heart. Outside, the street was empty, the cold wind sliding over the ground like a snake. But hidden in the shadows, figures moved with careful steps. Lyra's family had come, guided by shame and pride. Their faces were covered, their eyes sharp with purpose. They carried blades and shock sticks, weapons made to silence, not to capture, inside. Lyra's eyes opened suddenly, wide with fear. Her alien senses felt the vibrations of movement outside. Her weak hands clutched at the blanket as she whispered urgently, "Daniel, they're here." Daniel looked up instantly, his instincts already on edge. He grabbed the rifle he had been repairing and checked its chamber. "Stay quiet, don't move," he said firmly, his voice calm but his heart pounding. The first blow came against the workshop's metal door, a loud clang that echoed through the room. Lyra flinched, her eyes filling with tears. The second blow followed, harder, shaking the hinges. Then a voice, muffled but sharp, cut through the night. "Give her to us, human. She doesn't belong to you." Daniel stood tall, his rifle steady in his hands, his eyes hard. "She's not yours anymore," he called back, his voice steady as steel. "You left her to die. You don't get to claim her now." A low growl came from outside, and then the door burst open. 3 figures rushed in, blades flashing in the lantern light. Daniel fired once, the blast shaking the room, forcing them to scatter, the air filled with smoke and the sharp scent of burning metal. Lyra cried out, covering her face with her hands, her body trembling. Her voice broke through the chaos. "Daniel, don't. I'll kill you." But Daniel did not step back. His body moved with the calm of someone who had seen battles before. He ducked behind a table as another figure lunged forward, blades slashing through the air. With a sharp swing, Daniel smashed a wrench against the attacker's wrist, sending the blade clattering to the floor. He kicked the alien back, his rifle snapping up, forcing them to retreat. The others hissed, their eyes filled with fury. "You don't understand, human." One of them spat. "She is a burden. She is shame. Better she'll die than stain our name." Daniel's chest burned with anger. "You call her shame," he shouted, his voice thunderous. "I call her life. I'll fight for her, even if you won't." The clash of steel rang again as another attacker charged. Daniel fired. the blast grazing their shoulder, sending them crashing into the wall. The workshop shook with every strike, the lanterns swinging wildly, shadows dancing across the walls. Lyra sobbed, her heart breaking as she watched the man who had saved her now fight against her own blood. Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to speak. "No one ever fought for me before. No one but you." Her words gave Daniel strength, his grip on the rifle tightening as he faced the last attacker still standing. This one was different, taller, stronger, his blade glowing faintly with electric energy. He stepped forward slowly, his voice filled with venom. "You don't know what you've taken. Human, this girl is nothing but weakness, and weakness has no place in our clan." Daniel raised his rifle, his jaw set. "Then your clan is blind," he growled. "She is worth more than all of you combined." The two clashed in the center of the workshop, the sound of blade against steel echoing into the night. The attacker swung with fury, sparks flying as his blade scraped against Daniel's weapon. Daniel pushed back with raw strength, his muscles straining, his teeth clenched. Finally, with a roar, he slammed the butt of the rifle into the attacker's chest, knocking him to the ground. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Lyra's sobs. The attackers crawled back, wounded and defeated, their pride bleeding with their injuries. One of them spat on the floor, his eyes blazing with hate. "This isn't over. Human, you've made enemies you cannot fight. She will never be safe with you." They stumbled out into the night, leaving the workshop in ruins, the door broken, the air heavy with smoke. Daniel lowered his rifle slowly, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Then he turned to Lyra, who was staring at him with wide, tearful eyes. "You fought for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Her tears slid down her cheeks as she shook her head in disbelief. "No one ever fought for me before, not even my own family." Daniel knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "I told you, Lyra," he said softly, his voice steady despite the chaos. "You're not broken. You're not trash. You're alive, and as long as I'm here, no one will throw you away again." Her lips trembled as she whispered back, "Thank you, Daniel," and for the first time, the cold scrapyard girl felt something new. She felt protected, she felt wanted, and in her heart, fragile hope grew stronger, even as the shadows outside plotted their return. The workshop was silent after the attack, broken doors hanging from their hinges, tools scattered across the floor, and the faint smell of smoke still heavy in the air. Daniel sat on the ground for a long moment, his rifle leaning against the wall, his breath rough and heavy. Across the room, Lyra lay on the cot, her eyes wide and shimmering with tears, her hands trembling as she tried to understand what had just happened. He had fought for her, risked his life for her, and that truth wrapped around her heart like fire and ice at the same time. She had begged before, to her family, to her mother, to her brother, but none of them had stayed. None of them had lifted a hand for her. And now, Hume, someone her people despised, had done what they never did. Daniel stood slowly, brushing the dust from his jacket, his eyes meeting hers. "You're safe now," he said quietly, his voice steady. She swallowed hard, shaking her head. "No, I'm not. They'll come back. You heard them. They'll never let me live." Her voice cracked, fear spilling out with every word. Daniel walked over and knelt beside her, his rough hand resting gently on the blanket near her shoulder. "I don't care who they send," he said, his tone sharp with determination. "As long as I'm here, you're safe, Lyra. That's my promise." Her lips trembled as tears slid down her cheeks. She whispered brokenly, "Why? Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. I'm nothing. I can't walk. I can't fight. I'm just a burden." Daniel's jaw tightened, his eyes fierce as he leaned closer. "Don't you ever call yourself that again," he said, his voice low but strong. "You're alive, Lyra. That means you matter. You're not a burden. you're not trash. And I'll prove it to you. Her breath caught in her chest as she stared at him. Disbelief and fragile hope fighting inside her heart. He stood again and moved to his workbench, gathering tools with steady hands. The sound of metal clinking filled the silence, and Lyra watched, confused. What? What are you doing? She asked softly. Daniel looked back at her, his eyes filled with quiet fire. You said you can't walk, he said, his voice calm. Then I'll build something that will help you walk again. Her eyes widened, shock spreading across her pale face. No. No one can fix me. My body is broken. My family said I would never walk. They said I was worthless. He cut her words with a sharp shake of his head. Your family gave up on you, but I don't give up, not ever. I've fixed ships, engines, machines everyone thought were beyond saving. And I'll fix this too. I'll fix you. The words struck her heart like lightning. Fix me, she thought. No one had ever spoken those words to her. No one had ever believed she could be more than broken. Her eyes filled again, not with sorrow. This time, but with something different, something she hadn't felt in years' hope. Daniel spread parts across the table. Pieces of old exoskeleton armor he had scavenged over the years. Metal legs, joint servos, worn but repairable. He studied them with focus, his hands already moving, welding, adjusting, shaping. Lyra watched him in silence, every strike of the hammer echoing inside her chest. She whispered softly, almost to herself, You're building me legs. Daniel looked up at her, his lips curving into a small smile. I'm building you freedom, Lyra. Her heart raced, her hands gripping the blanket tightly. She had dreamed of walking again, dreamed of moving through the world without being carried, without being a burden. But dreams had always died in the scrapyard, and now this human was trying to give them back. Hours passed as Daniel worked, sweat covering his brow, sparks flying from the tools. Lyra drifted in and out of sleep, her weak body exhausted, but her mind restless. Every time she opened her eyes, she saw him still there, still working, still refusing to give up. Each time, she felt something stronger trust. At one point, she whispered, her voice trembling, You'll get hurt because of me. Your enemies will come. My family will never stop. You should leave me before it's too late. Daniel didn't even look up from his work, his hand steady on the metal frame. I already told you, Lyra. I don't leave people behind. I don't. Throw lives away, not ever. Her throat tightened, her chest aching with emotions she couldn't control. She turned her face into the blanket, silent tears sliding down. No one had ever spoken those words to her. No one had ever chosen her before. Outside, the night deepened, and the broken door let in the whisper of the wind, far away in the city. Her family planned their next move, their anger burning hotter with every rumor. But inside the workshop, another fire burned brighter. The fire of a human's promise, the fire of fragile hope turning stronger. Daniel tightened the last bolt on the frame, lifting it into the light. It was still rough, unfinished, but the shape of it was clear mechanical legs that could hold weight, move joints, and give Lyra what she had lost. He set it down carefully. Beside the cot, his voice calm but filled with conviction. This is just the start, he said, looking into her wide, tearful eyes. You thought your life was over, Lyra, but it isn't. Not yet. Not while I'm here. Her breath shook as she stared at the frame, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. For the first time in years, she whispered not out of fear or sorrow, but out of fragile joy. I want to live. Daniel nodded firmly, his hand resting on the frame. Then live, Lyra. And I'll help you every step of the way. The first light of dawn touched the broken streets outside Daniel's workshop. The sky was painted with soft shades of gold and silver, but inside the workshop, the air was heavy with anticipation. On the cot, Lyra sat upright, her frail hands trembling against the blanket, her eyes locked on the machine standing before her. The exoskeleton frame glistened faintly under the lantern light. Rough but steady, forged from the scraps Daniel had pieced together. It was not beautiful, but it was strong, and more than that. It was hope given shape. Daniel stood beside it, his tired eyes filled with determination. He had worked all night. Refusing to rest, every bolt and wire tightened with the promise he had made. Lyra's lips trembled as she whispered, Is it really for me? Daniel nodded, his voice calm and steady. Yes, it's yours. You said you couldn't walk, so I built this to help you. But the rest, Lyra, the rest will be up to you. Her heart pounded, fear and hope clashing inside. Her chest, all her life, she had been told she was broken, weak, worthless. Her family's shame, but now, this human stood before her. Telling her she could rise again, the thought felt impossible. Yet she wanted it with every piece of her soul. Daniel knelt in front of her, his hands gentle as he began to fasten the frame around her legs. The metal locked into place with soft clicks, holding her paralyzed body with mechanical strength. Lyra gasped at the weight, her hands clutching at the edge of the cot. Her eyes widened as she felt a strange sensation, the possibility of movement. You're not alone, Daniel said softly. Tightening the final strap, I'll hold you. But you have to try. Just try, no matter how small the step. Lyra swallowed hard. Her chest shaking with emotion, she looked into his eyes. Searching for doubt, but found none, only steady resolve. Her voice trembled as she whispered, I'm scared. Daniel's lips curved into the faintest smile. Good. That means you're alive. Now let's show them you're stronger than they ever believed. With his help, she placed her feet on the ground, the exoskeleton's joints humming faintly. Her legs had not touched the floor in what felt like forever. She trembled violently, the frame holding her weight. But the choice to stand was hers. Her fingers dug into Daniel's arm as she tried to rise, her breath coming fast. For a moment, she faltered, the weight too heavy, fear screaming that she would fall. Her family's cruel words echoed in her mind. Burden, useless, shame. But then Daniel's voice cut through the storm, firm and unshaken. You can do this, Lyra. You're not broken. Take the step. Her teeth clenched, tears sliding down her cheeks. With all her strength, she pushed forward. The frame locking and moving with her, her body swayed, almost collapsing. But Daniel's hand held her steady. And then, for the first time since she was abandoned, her body rose. She was standing. Her breath caught in her throat, disbelief flooding. Her eyes, she looked down at her legs, trembling, supported by steel, yet alive in a way she had never felt. I'm standing, she whispered, the words breaking into a sob. Daniel's eyes softened. His voice quiet but proud. Yes, you are. Now take the step. Her heart pounded as she lifted one leg. The frame moving with her, the joint whining. Softly, her foot slid forward, touching the floor. One step, her whole body shook. But she laughed through her tears. One step. I did it. Daniel nodded, his arm steady beside her. Do another. She moved again. Each step clumsy, unsteady, but real. Her laughter mixed with sobs as tears streamed down her face. Every step crushed the weight of her family's words. Every step shattered the chains of abandonment. She was not trash. She was not useless. She was alive. By the time she had taken 3 steps, her body nearly collapsed, and Daniel caught her gently. Lowering her back to the cot, she was shaking all over, exhausted, but her smile glowed brighter. Then the lanterns. I walked, she whispered breathlessly, her voice filled with wonder. I really walked. Daniel sat beside her, his rough hand resting on hers. You did, Lyra. You proved them wrong. You proved yourself right. And this is only the beginning. Her eyes filled again, but this time with joy. You gave me back my life. You gave me family. Daniel shook his head, his smile faint but warm. No, Lyra, you already had life. You just needed someone to see it. To believe in it. Your family couldn't, but I did. And now you can believe it too. She looked at him with trembling lips and whispered, "You're the first person who ever saw me." Outside, the city stirred with rumors, whispers spreading of the paralyzed girl who had risen again. In the shadows, the family seethed with anger and fear. Their pride wounded, but beyond their hate, something greater had begun. Because in that small workshop, hope had been reborn. A human had given strength to the forgotten. A girl once thrown away, now stood again, and as she stared at her legs, and the man who never abandoned her, Lyra knew her life had truly begun.